As we've talked about before, the difference between connotation and denotation lies in the difference between a dictionary definition and the emotional and implied meaning of the word, which is the difference between what is the actual meaning and what is the implied meaning. In the poem Cross by Langston Hughes, even the title represents a challenge with connotation as opposed to denotation. When we look at the title of the poem, Cross, without even reading the rest of the poem, we can start to surmise all of the different meanings of the word cross. Cross means the cross that we carry, that we bear, the cross that Christ was crucified on. We think of cross as to go across something or to cross a river, cross a bridge, cross a road. It means to move from one place to the next. And sometimes when we cross something metaphorically, we are moving from one stage or one state to another. The word cross can also mean a combination of two things, or perhaps a hybrid of sorts. We could do a cross between two crops, a cross between two types of people. We can do a cross between two vehicles. And lastly, the word cross can also mean that I'm angry. I'm cross at you. So there are multiple meanings of the word cross, and the implications for what this poem is going to represent for us is actually quite complicated. So let's read the poem. Cross by Langston Hughes. My old man's a white old man, and my old mother's black. If ever I cursed my white old man, I take my curses back. If ever I cursed my black old mother and wished she were in hell, I'm sorry for that evil wish, and now I wish her well. My old man died in a fine big house. My ma died in a shack. I wonder where I'm gonna die, being neither white nor black. Now, the interesting thing about this poem, well, among many things, is that the word cross does not appear anywhere within the text of the poem. It is only in the title, which is quite interesting. So we get the impression that Langston Hughes would like for us to consider the connotative meanings of the word cross prior to even reading the poem, so that when we do read the poem, we see all of those meanings of the word cross applied. Langston Hughes very quickly says, my old man's white and my mother's black. So right away we know that he might consider himself a cross, if you will, of two races. And then he goes on to talk about he cursed his white old man, or if he had ever cursed him, and if he had ever wished his mother to hell. And we know that he probably had at some time or another in this poem. The speaker himself had those wishes, those ill wishes toward both of his parents. And that implies the cross, the connotation of the word cross as angry or upset. We also see that this seems to be something that he has to, a burden that he has to endure, or a cross metaphorically that he has to bear. This cross between two races, having to live in two different worlds. And we know that Langston Hughes did indeed have that burden as he was writing during the Harlem Renaissance. He was one of the precursors to the civil rights movement. So we know that having that being a part of the white world and part of the black world was probably a burden or a cross to him. And finally, at the end of the poem, we get the feeling that he has crossed over into a higher level of understanding, and at least in the sense that he wishes his mother well, and he takes his curses back that he had issued towards his father. But the poem itself ends with a question, and that question leads us back to the cross of being neither black nor white. And so there's a paradox there, because rather than being a cross, he's saying he is neither one nor the other. So now you can see how connotative and denotative meanings can play very prominently in the meaning overall of certain poems, and certainly that is the case in Langston Hughes's poem Cross.